Hello and welcome to this presentation of the Bush News Program by the George H.W. Bush Presidential Library and Museum's Education Department. My name is Ivy, and I'll be working with you today. For today's program, you will be taking a trip into the past as investigative reporters looking into the Clean Air Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act. Let us take a moment. I want you to imagine yourself as a reporter. You can be a reporter on the internet, newspaper, or television. That is completely up to you. As a reporter, your job is to investigate or look into the facts of a story. Discern or tell what belongs where, and then share that news with others. You can often find a reporter keeping notes as they investigate. So, if you would like, please grab paper and something to write with to keep notes. However, you may also keep track in your head if you prefer. Let us begin with reporter training. To be a good investigative reporter, you need to know background information. Like I said earlier, today you will be investigating the Clean Air Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act. These are both laws passed by President George H.W. Bush that have a huge impact even today. So, for our reporter training, let us review how a bill becomes a law. First, a law starts with an idea that is written up as a bill. Anyone can propose an idea for a bill, including you. Second, you should know that Congress, the location where bills are discussed, debated, and voted on, has two chambers, the Senate and the House of Representatives. For a bill to become a law, it needs to go through both chambers. It can start either in the Senate or the House of Representatives. Today, we will follow the path of House Bill H.R. 2273, whose journey begins in the House of Representatives. After being written into existence, the bill's next journey step is to go to committee. A committee is a group of individuals that meet up for a common purpose. Okay, so they're a group of people meeting together for a common purpose. That's a committee. In this case, the common purpose is to decide if the bill needs any changes or if it is good as is. If we look at the illustration here, you can see some people going ahead and say, let's vote, yes, yes here, and then another person saying, no, I don't like it. So that each of these people's opinion needs to be heard in turn so they can discuss it out and make any corrections that they feel need to be made. Okay, so once they like the bill, they, the committee, will then present it to the rest of the people in their chamber. In this case, because this is a House bill, a House of Representatives bill, this committee will be presenting to the House of Representatives chamber. Once passed, the House bill will journey to the Senate, where it will transform into a Senate bill. In this case, Senate Bill 1989 or 1989. Just looks so much like a year. All right. So it has now transformed, much like a transformer. It was one thing, now it's the other, but the essence of it is still the same. So we have the House of Representatives saying, yes, we like this bill, we are in agreement, it passes. And now the Senate gets to vote. Okay? So the Senate has to decide if they want the bill to become a law too. So then they vote, and in this case, the bill passes! It even says right here, I can't believe both groups agreed. Yay! Well, I added the yay, but I think that feeling is definitely there. With the agreement of both chambers of Congress, which were known as the House of Representatives and. Do you remember? What was the other house? We had the House of Representatives and the. Very good. We have the Senate. Okay, so the bill may now be sent to the president. So after it passes the House of Representatives and the Senate, they both have to agree, and all their committees have to agree. Just a lot of agreement has to occur here. And then it's been voted on and it's been passed, and everyone's in agreement. Now the bill goes to the president. Okay, so the president then decides if he or she will sign the bill into law. The president has the choice to not sign it. This is known as a veto. And then the bill does not become a law. But in this case, the president does sign our bill that started off as H.R. 2273 and then became the Senate Bill 1989, and then it was signed, and now it is a law. Okay. So now we have a law looking at us in the face. So, good job following this journey. So again, we just journeyed with the bill as it passed its committee, got voted on first by the House of Representatives, then the Senate, where it passed both votes, then it was signed into law by the president, and now it is a law. So good job, reporters, for following along so well on this bill's journey. Please give yourself a pat on the back or on the shoulder, wherever is just kind of easy to reach and safe to do so. But go ahead and give yourself a pat for a job well done in following that. It is now time to receive our investigative reporter assignment. You are ready. You can do this. We have received a written request from the 41st President of the United States of America, George H.W. Bush. We will read the letter together. You can follow along with your eyes or with your finger, but try to avoid touching that screen because you don't want to mess it up. But again, you can follow along with your eyes or your finger. And if you need to, you can whisper it quietly to yourself as we read as well. Like, that is also a completely valid option. Okay? Okay, so let's do this. So we start with National Security Review. Here we are, we're right here. Memorandum for my fellow Americans. Subject: the success of the United States is dependent upon you, the people. My fellow Americans, one of the most important jobs the President of the United States the presidents of the United States have, sorry about that, is to sign proposed legislation into law. I work with Congress to create and compromise on legislative policies during my time as President of the United States. I had collected some important documents and photographs to show a class when Sully's the president's dog, ran around my desk and knocked the box over. Now I need your help to put each picture and document back where it belongs. These laws made the news when I was in office, and I don't want to make the news for losing them. Do your best to match the images and documents with the law you think they best fit. Thank you for your service to our country. Good luck. The future of our foreign friendships is in your hand. Sincerely, George Bush. Okay, so we have our mission given to us by the 41st President George H.W. Bush. So let's break down exactly what President Bush is asking of us. He had a collection of papers. His dog, Sully, ran through the office and scattered the papers. He is asking us to help sort them back out. Let's take a look at these documents. Whew, okay, they do look, kind of a little hodgepodge all over the place now. All right, but looking at it, it looks like our documents are a mix of things from the Clean Air Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act. Let's investigate information from both of those laws so we can properly sort the information. Our editor has been kind enough to provide us with a background briefing. Let us read it together, starting with the Clean Air Act. Okay, so like last time, you can follow along with your eyes or with a finger. I'm going to start right here. Clean Air Act. Background information. The Clean Air Act of 1963 is a United States federal law designed to control air pollution on a national level. It is one of the United States' first and most influential modern environmental laws, and one of the most comprehensive air quality laws in the world. Okay. As with many other major U.S. federal environmental statutes, it is administered by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, also known as the EPA. Further amendments were made in 1990 under the presidency of George H.W. Bush to address the problems of acid rain, ozone depletion, and toxic air pollution, and to establish a national permit program for stationary sources and increased enforcement authority. It also established new auto gasoline requirements to control emissions. Reviewing his tenure as EPA administrator under President George H.W. Bush, William K. Riley characterized passage of the 1990 amendments to the Clean Air Act as his most notable accomplishment. Okay. So, let us take a deeper look at what the Clean Air Act did. So there's quite a few words going on here. Toxic air pollution, acid rain, ozone depletion. All of these things right here are harmful for the environment. When the ozone gets depleted, that's the layer that surrounds the earth. More harmful rays can come in from the sun and cause damage. Acid rain can, over time, cause things to break down and deteriorate. It can actually break down rock and man-made objects and things like that because it is an acid. So it can cause damage. And then toxic air is just really bad to breathe and can contribute to making acid rain. So it's a whole list of problems right there. Okay. So here's what we're going to do. First, I want us to take a moment. Taking these moments are good. I want you to take a moment and with your notebook or in your head, I want you to answer the following question. What do you think can make air dirty? Okay, what do you think can make air dirty? This is a completely open-ended question. Completely open. There are no right or wrong answers here. Just what do you think truly and really makes air dirty? I'll give you about 10 seconds. Just write down an answer. Okay. One thing that I am sure about is that your answers are amazing. Some of you have probably thought of answers I have never thought of, and for that, good job. However, let me go ahead and share my answers with you so we can learn together. Based on the reading, dirty air basically has things in it, extra things that shouldn't be there. This can be a bad smell. This can be things you can see, such as smoke. This can be things we cannot see, like gas emissions, but can be detected by scientists using special testing. Clean air is made by limiting the amount of extra things going into the air. And that is what the Clean Air Act does. It limits the amount of pollution and extra things that may be added into the air. Thus, air is made cleaner and safer. Okay, so that is the Clean Air Act. All about air, the environment, and pollution and keeping pollution away from the air. Okay, so that's when we think of clean air, think of keeping the extra stuff out of the air. Okay? So let's review our next one, which is going to be the Americans with Disabilities Act. We're going to read it together. Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. Background information. Passed by Congress in 1990, the Americans with Disabilities Act, also known as the ADA, is the nation's first comprehensive civil rights law addressing the needs of people with disabilities, prohibiting discrimination in employment, public services, public accommodations, and telecommunications. The Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, or ADA, is a civil rights law that prohibits discrimination based on disability. In addition, unlike the Civil Rights Act, the ADA also requires covered employers to provide reasonable accommodations to employees with disabilities and imposes accessibility requirements on public accommodations. In 1986, the National Council on Disability had recommended enactment of an Americans with Disability Act and drafted the first version of the bill, which was introduced in the House and Senate in 1988. The final version of the bill was signed into law on July 26, 1990, by President George H.W. Bush. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to draw our attention to right here is the fact that the bill was introduced in 1988 and was signed into law in 1990. So it took 2 years to get through that process we talked about in the beginning, where a bill is introduced, goes through both chambers of Congress, and then is given to the president to sign. So that took 2 years. Some bills take longer than that, and some bills take less than that. It just can vary. Okay, and then right here we have a graphic that says the American disabilities. 57 million people in the United States have disabilities, which is about 19% of the population. Okay, so this graph is about that 19% of the population. So we have 8.1 million have difficulty seeing, 2 million are blind or unable to see, 7.6 million experience difficulty hearing, and 31 million have difficulty walking or climbing stairs. Okay, so when we're talking about the Americans with Disabilities Act, when we're looking for information based on it, we're looking for things that open up the world for more people. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Excellent question. So, in fact, you know what? Let me ask you a question just to show you how much you probably already know about this issue without even realizing. Where, so have your pencil and pen ready, your notebook or your brain. Where have you seen a wheelchair access ramp? Where have you seen a wheelchair access ramp? Okay, I know you guys have a variety of answers that came to your head, but I've seen them basically anywhere in public that there are stairs, such as maybe outside a public library or leading up to a school or a courthouse, or when you're going to a store and there's like that lip between like the parking lot and the curb of like the stores and stuff, there's usually a wheelchair access place. That is a product of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Those wheelchair access ramps make it so more people can enter those buildings easily and accessibly. Okay? So those are good things, and that law provides for it. The law also provides for a lot of other things, but that is just one example of many of which you've probably seen in your day-to-day life. So I do encourage you, as you're just going around in the world, when it's safe to do so, look at how different things are in place to help people be able to get there, like braille on signs and the wheelchair access ramps. And I challenge you to think about other ways to make things accessible for people. It's because you might be the person designing something one day that'll help others, or look at what's already there and, find it. I think it'd be fun. Okay, so that is the Americans with Disabilities Act. It is time for our Which is Which activity. Ha, there we go. And here is our mess of documents and images, and we are going to sort these out. So I've gone ahead and I made us in our example bank right here, and we have our two sorting categories of either the Clean Air Act or the Americans with Disabilities Act. So I am going to grab a document from the bank. I'm going to enlarge it. We'll look at it together, and then we will sort it into its category. Okay? Sound like a plan? I hope it does, because that is the plan. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so our first one, let's see what it has to say for us today. Make this nice and big. Okay. Our success with this act proves that we are keeping faith with the spirit of our courageous forefathers who wrote in the Declaration of Independence, We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Those words have been our guide for more than 2 centuries as we've labored to form our more perfect union. But tragically, for too many Americans, the blessings of liberty have been limited or even denied. The Civil Rights Act of '64 took a bold step towards righting that wrong. But the stark fact remained that people with disabilities were still victims of segregation and discrimination, and this was intolerable. Today's legislation brings us closer to that day when no Americans will ever again be deprived of their basic guarantee of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Said by George H.W. Bush. Okay, so now we get to decide if this quote belongs with the Americans with Disabilities Act or the Clean Air Act. So I'm going to just draw your attention to a couple of things, then I'm going to let you choose. So we have the Civil Rights Act of '64. I know one of our readings mentioned that. We also have this idea that we're trying to make America more open for more people. So we're talking about people, their lives, and accessibility here. Okay? We want to open it up. So which act opened up America for more people? You can go ahead and tell the screen, write it down. Which act opened up America for more people? And if your answer is the Americans with Disabilities Act, that is correct. So we are putting this one under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Okay, because it was all about civil liberties and opening up America. All right, let's look at our next one. Oop, and this image is behind, so let's go ahead and bring it forward. There. Oh, it didn't want to do that. Let's try this. Send backward. There we go. Okay. So let's make this nice and big, and we're going to look at this image together. So, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, said by Martin Luther King Jr. All right, so what do we see in this image? What do we see in this image? Go ahead. I would like you to write down or think about what details are popping out to you in this image. I'll give you guys a few seconds. You can you also have the option of like telling a stuffed animal or somebody in the room with you or a pet. What are you seeing? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and describe to you what I'm seeing. I'm seeing here that there's a banner up top. There is a group of people who are outside on a street, sorry, in what appears to be a big city. These people are using mobility devices and are in the middle of a parade or potentially even some sort of protest. We can tell because there is a banner that is telling us a message here about the injustice and how it's implying that there is injustice here that needs to be righted. And we know that in our categories, we have the Clean Air Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act. And that there was an idea for a bill that did become a law. So let's go ahead. Which law do you think this image pertains to? Okay, if you said the American with Disabilities Act, you are spot on. This is definitely belonging in the Americans with Disabilities Act in this case. Okay. Let's see what we have next. Okay, I'll make this big and then I'm going to jump it to the front. So let's make that big. Let us bring it to front. There we go. Okay. So the text here is tiny in our newspaper, but I think we can still manage to read the headline, which says, Bush signs sweeping air pollution controls into law. Okay. So I've done a couple of these now. So I'm just going to straight up ask you, which act was about air pollution and cleaning up that air? Was it the Americans with Disability Act? No. Was it the Clean Air Act? Exactly correct. It is the Clean Air Act that we are thinking of for this one. Very good. Okay, let's see. Let's go with the text one, and then we will end on a photograph, because that's fun. Okay, so we're going to bring this to the front. There we go. Make it bigger. Make it even bigger. Let's make it even bigger. All right. Let's make it ginormous. Okay. Every American expects and deserves to breathe clean air. And as president, it is my mission to guarantee it for this generation and for the generation to come. If we take this commitment seriously, if we believe that every American expects and deserves clean air, and then we act on that belief, then we will set an example for the rest of the world to follow. Said by George H.W. Bush. Okay, I'm going to point out right here, to breathe clean air. Okay, and here again, we have clean air. So which law is President George H.W. Bush talking about in this case? Excellent. The answer is the Clean Air Act. You guys are good at this. You guys are excellent investigative journalists, reporters, just figuring this stuff out. Okay, we have one last one to put in the proper place. We make it nice and big for us to see. Okay, let's read it together. This ramp and fishing platform meet the standards of the Americans with Disabilities Act and may be used by anyone. Please respect the desire of people with disabilities to fish on the fishing platform. Okay, that is awesome and pretty straightforward, I think. I think the biggest hint here is where it tells us this ramp meets the Americans with Disabilities Act. So it belongs with the American with Disabilities Act. Okay, so here we go. We'll put that here. We'll make it a little smaller so not overlapping too bad. Here, can we get them all in here? Yeah, it's just a tiny overlap. There we go. Okay, everything's still visible. Awesome. So we now have our documents sorted on behalf of President George H.W. Bush into the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Clean Air Act. Guys, excellent work. Thank you for sticking it out with me. We have investigated the past. We educated ourselves, and we used that knowledge to sort out what belongs in what category. So now we can properly tell people, where these images and articles and quotes all belong so we can share that information with others. So give yourselves a very quiet butterfly wings version of a clap. You know, the one where it's just really soft, but beautiful and elegant and really heartfelt. That type of clap. So give yourself one of those. Excellent job today. So we have one last activity to wrap up with, and that is our Passport for Learning activity. Okay, so for this one, here's how it goes. We have 3 pillars. 1, 2, 3. Each of these pillars is a life lesson that we can take away from President George H.W. Bush. The first is lifetime of service. The second lesson is putting people first in decision making. And the third lesson is building relationships to better the world. So these are our 3 categories. And much like how with the laws, we took documents and we put them into categories between the Americans with Disabilities Act and the Clean Air Act. For this one, we have 3 categories, so just one more category. And we have evidence here in both picture and written form that we can put into each of these categories. However, there's a slight twist. You can also come up with an example from your own life to put into these categories. So what do I mean? Let us look at building relationships to better the world. So for this one, in this case, I can type on to the screen. You guys can just write it down or do this in your head. But for this one, I would say making lasting friendships. Okay, so that is one way to build better relationships. You can make lasting friendships. So think about the friends you have around you right now and try to keep those friendships alive for as long as you possibly can. Now, it doesn't always work out, but it also can work out. Um, sometimes it's really nice to have friendships that span over 10, 20 years. It's a really good feeling. So that is an example just from general life, but that also relates to how President Bush was an UN ambassador and also right here, US liaison to China, and met with lots of different people and just got to know people, and he maintained the relationships that he made as an ambassador, as the US liaison to China, as vice president. And so when he eventually became president, he had those relations to fall back on, and he had these conversations already begun with other countries. So this making lasting friendships is our example. And let's see, being U.S. liaison to China is President Bush's example. Okay, so I just challenge you guys to go through and make an example for each category. So that is how this activity works. So you can pause here and complete this activity and then press play when you're ready to continue. And we do have the full Passport for Learning available on our website. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today we covered how a bill becomes a law, the ADA and Clean Air Act, and our Passport for Learning activity. If you have any questions, please contact us at bush.education@nara.gov. More of our programs are available at our bush41.org website. Thank you so much again for joining us today, and I hope you have a lovely day. day.